I'm going to call the Board of Supervisors to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Supervisor Giommi, Supervisor White, Supervisor Horton, Supervisor Schutte.
Here.
Mayor Bagwell.
Here.
You have your quorum.
Thank you so much. If you would like to rise, please, for our invocation. I see Pastor is ready to go. Thank you.
If you'll pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, that we know every good and perfect gift comes from you. We thank you for this city, a place that we can raise our family. And I just pray, Lord, for this meeting. Be with the mayor and with the city council leaders, the city staff, and first responders. Lord, I pray that the decisions made here today are made with integrity, humility, that they seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly before you. I thank you, Lord, and I just pray that you continue to strengthen our community. Be with the children, the families, and with this meeting. Father, it's in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. Would you all join me in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to opening public comment. And I have Steve Fonda. Oh, sorry, didn't read that right. Come on up. Fonda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been a long-term resident of Carson City.
You have to get it green so it can read.
This one right here? Yes.
Any one of them.
Thank you. Everybody copy? My name is Steve Fonda. I've been a long-term resident of Carson City for over 30 years. I live at 4471 Ponderosa at the junction of Ponderosa and Clearview, which was a nice rural part of the world to move into when I moved in from Elko back in '95. I know my neighbors. Anybody that moves in becomes a neighbor. We understand each other. We work with each other. We try to alert each other to hazards and things like that in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, about a month and a half ago, my long-term neighbor passed away. His estate, his family up in Washington, decided they didn't want to come down and live here, but they'd sell the property. So a local agent had listed the property. Many people came by to look at it. They had an estate sale and so forth and so on. I did meet a couple who also seems to be a long-term resident of Carson City on the west side, indicate, hey, we signed the paperwork. Great. I have a dog. You have a dog? Yeah, great. They can play together. We can get to know each other. Then I find out from the people working on the property that they're turning into one of your proposed 40 short-term rentals. My wife and I kind of go, hey, we know our neighbors. We know our neighborhood. Now people are going to move in for short-term Airbnb or VRBO rentals. So my first question is, how did this happen? When was this proposed? Is the regulation approved? When did it start? Who initiated the resolution? Is it because the city needs more money? Property management groups need more money? Obviously, this couple wants an investment, right? Why would they buy their property for a rental? Great property. 1.5 acres. But I won't know these people when they come in and when they leave. I won't get to know them. I don't know if they like dogs. Maybe my dog's going to bark a little bit too much. What are the rules and regulations regarding and governing and maintaining that property? And I think today, based on the staff report that I read, that's on the agenda today, correct? $20,000 possible revenue, no budget for it. What's the fiscal impact? But I'm not talking about fiscal impact. I'm talking about long-term resident impact. I didn't come here for vacation property. I don't mind people making money, but if you're going to zone my property for this, why don't you do these new condos, townhouses, apartments that are going up every day, Why can't they? Are they going to be zoned for short-term rentals too? I need to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't, unless Mr. French, you didn't indicate, did you want to, is Denny here? Oh, okay. Then he'll probably be end or on an item. Okay, I'm going to move on then. Is there anyone else that wanted opening public comment that didn't sign in? Okay, we're going to move on then to approval of our minutes of July 2nd, 2026. Did any members have any changes? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve Carson City Board of Supervisors meeting minutes from July 2nd, 2026 as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. If you'll join me on the floor now, we will do our proclamation for the 50 years. 50 years for the Senior Center. Well, me too. Well, hello. Do we have friends of the Senior Center? It looks like two. How many years were you on the board working? Too many? 48 of the 50? Not quite, but I know I'm close. I know I'm close. So, Courtney, come on up and bring the team. Just bring them. Oh, I love the T-shirt. Isn't that cool?
Can I get over on this side?
You may. Come on around. Check it out, huh?
I showered and everything. Just for you, Tom.
Kim. All right. So whereas the Carson City Senior Center was incorporated in 1976, that's kind of a great year anyway, isn't it? With the vision of enhancing the quality of life for older adults by providing programs, services, opportunities for lifelong learning, nutrition, recreation, health and wellness, and meaningful social connections. Whereas for 50 years, the Carson City Senior Center has served as a welcoming place where older adults can find friendship, purpose, recreation, education, nutrition, health and wellness, volunteer opportunities, and access to vital community resources. The Senior Center has continually evolved to meet the changing needs of our community's aging population while remaining steadfast in its mission to enhance the quality of life, promote independence, and encourage healthy, active aging. Whereas the center has become a cornerstone of the community, positively impacting the lives of thousands of Carson City residents through nutritious meals, fitness and wellness programs, educational classes, volunteer opportunities, caregiver support, social activities like bingo. Do not get in the way of bingo. Let me tell you, they got their chairs figured out and they're pretty good. So don't get in the way of bingo, but, and countless and other essential services that promote dignity, health, and well-being. Whereas the celebration of the center's 50th anniversary provides an opportunity to honor its rich history, recognize those whose vision and dedication have shaped its legacy, and reaffirm the community's commitment to supporting older adults for generations to come. Now, therefore, I, Lori Bagwell, Mayor of Carson City, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, do hereby recognize and celebrate the 50th anniversary of Carson City Senior Centers Incorporation. And also we want to extend our sincere gratitude to all who have helped make the center a lasting source of support, friendship, and opportunity for the older adults of Carson City. Woohoo! Woohoo! You're going to tell us a little bit about the party? Yeah.
So we're having a celebration next Saturday, the 15th, from 11 to 2. It is a community open house. Everybody is welcome. We are celebrating the milestone of 50 years. And like the mayor said, it took a village to get here, and it still takes a village to go forward. And so we are honored with the city's past and present and future support of the Senior Center. We have a unique partnership, public and private, with the nonprofit. It's unique in the state, and we just want to thank the board for their support, past and present, and invite everybody to celebrate next Saturday with us. And joined with us is our wonderful advisory council members and our governing board.
Exciting. And they do take it seriously. Thank you for all your efforts and hard work on behalf of the seniors in Carson City. We notice it. We don't often get to say thank you. So, a hearty thank you from all of us for all of your efforts, except for him.
Lori, how are you?
I'm doing good. It is a lot of years though, right?
We have, yeah.
I'm not imagining this. I think it's lots.
Have you bought any logs lately?
Oh, see, look. Gosh, how long has that been, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty close to correct. It's a lot of years, but
Would it be appropriate for the member of the board of the senior center to give the mayor a hug?
absolutely. Oh. Right, life is good. If you look that way, this way, we'll look left and then right. Now right. That might not be possible. Okay, ready? They really have gone a long way, and you guys are continuing to do a good job. I hear great things about the change in the food, where now you have the secondary menu item, and I hear great things about that. And if you want to learn to line dance, you really need to go to the senior center. I don't know if I can fit the time in, but I love it. Ooh, I love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Mhm. Okay. Just let that clear. See you later, Corey. Bye, Kim. Thank you again for all you do. Thank you. Okay. How about our employee? Come on up, Mark. T-Man, come on up. Woohoo! That's pretty special. Pretty special. You gonna give him the money? Well, we also gotta give him the money. I mean, things matter here. All right, so let me tell you, Carson City's quality of life attracts talented and loyal employees. Every day, Carson City employees put to use their broad array of skills and expertise with efficiency and integrity for the benefit of everyone in our city. Carson City values its employees and acknowledges that recognizing employees for their hard work and dedication is critical to the future of health and growth of our city. We owe a substantial debt of gratitude to the Carson City employees and applaud those who go above and beyond in their loyalty and ability. So let's talk a little about Mark, how exceptionally he has managed 16 concurrent infrastructure projects. Wow. At the same time? Wow. With a lean 5-person team. And his outstanding dedication, extended hours, and proactive oversight on the complex William Street project saved Carson City taxpayers approximately $370,000, while he consistently mentored staff on site to improve operations division-wide, thereby contributing to the fulfillment of the city's mission, values, and visions. Now, therefore, I, Lori Bagwell, Mayor of Carson City, celebrate the dedicated accomplishments of Mark Tiemann in serving the community and do hereby proclaim Mark Tiemann to be the employee of the quarter. And it's a little more than a proclamation. We really, I wish it could be more, but we award $200 to the employee of the quarter because they just go above and beyond, and we want you to know that we recognize that. So thank you for all of your efforts on our behalf. Thank you. And then did you just want to add any neat?
Well, just we are so lucky as the city to have Mark working for us here. I wish more people knew how lucky we were. We stole him from a big general contractor, and he brought all their secrets with him. And anyway, he's got the interest of our community first always, and out there in the projects, like he's super smart and always looking for a better way. I'd like to turn it over for Darren Anderson briefly because he's the one who nominated.
Oh, perfect. All right. You're getting showered. Yeah, this is working.
Yeah, so I have more of the same. I'm super thankful to have you on the team. And I think that just one other thing that I've really appreciated is with our projects, there's always a gap, I guess, in our industry between the engineers and the designers and the people in the field. And so Mark is really good at talking to the designers, whether they're part of our in-house team or our external consultants, just to help everybody work together. So I really appreciate that too.
The audience? No? Okay, because we would have brought him in. Make sure he gets that too. You have to look right because again, you got proof that we gave you $200. Oh, wait. Oh, yay! Come on, Rick, get on in. Thank you so much again for all. Yeah, really, thank you. Thank you. All right, go back up. That's, yeah. Yeah, exchange it for a real check. Okay. Try not to drop it, right? Dropping these microphones is a bad answer. They tend not to work after. Okay, we're now ready for our consent agenda. No one requested a pull, but just in case. Okay, Supervisor Giomi, a motion, please.
Move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item 8A, 9A, 9B, which includes resolution number 2026-R-21, 9C, 10A, 10B, 11A, 11B, 12A, and 12B, all as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, then we're going to go to agenda item 14A. This is discussion and possible action to finalize the bill draft request that we've been discussing along the way so that we can meet the legislative deadlines. Ms. Hicks, do you have a briefing for us, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. For the record, Stephanie Hicks, Deputy City Manager. So on July 4th, we provided to you the recommendations of our Charter Review Committee, and you directed staff to prepare the BDR that incorporated those recommendations for review by this board before we submit to the legislature. That is what is contained in this item, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Does any member have a question? Did we get it right? Do you have a question, Supervisor
you.
Wright?
I'm still not comfortable with the changes that are being proposed for section 2.180. So I'm still not going to support that particular BDR, so I'm wondering if we should separate this again as we did the last time. And furthermore, in that meeting of June 4th, I asked for a discussion as to how we were going to define animal. That discussion has not taken place, and I don't know how we send a BDR over to the legislature when we don't know what an animal is. It's pretty clear that's a variable definition, and I think we should know what we are defining before we send a BDR over to the legislature.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Yu, do we have no statutory definition, no definition whatsoever of animal anywhere?
Take a look at that through NRS. I also have to check CCMC to see if we have a particular definition for that. If you want, I'm sure that it would only take me a few minutes to identify that during this meeting, and we could circle back to this item if you would like, Mayor.
Okay.
So actually, we do in our municipal code, an animal is defined as any living creature, not a human. And then as I identified that in our June 4 meeting, and then also as you read through NRS, there are multiple definitions of animals, whether sometimes it includes livestock, sometimes it doesn't, it sometimes includes poultry and that nature. I think we need to know what we're asking them to pass through the legislation.
Mr. Yu, if the definition exists within our
Well,
code.
I actually just kind of wanted to springboard off of what Supervisor Wright was just saying. He's absolutely right. I mean, just doing a very quick 10-second search on Carson City Municipal Code, I mean, I can see that the term is used a minimum of 64, 65 different times. And Supervisor White is also correct. I mean, in NRS, throughout statutory authorities, you will have different definitions of the term animal, I suppose, in different circumstances and different contexts. I mean, that's usually the case with, in relation to a lot of different terms and phrases that are used in our NRS. It really kind of is predicated on what context and circumstance we're speaking about specifically. So with that, I would defer mostly to the policy considerations of this board in deciding what is the best fit for that term animal. I will, of course, also point out, as we had that previous discussion at a prior meeting, as used in that specific charter provision, the existing term was animals and or poultry, I believe. And I think that was also a point of contention for Supervisor White, which is, well, poultry is also an animal. So what is the distinction and what is the legislative policy of this board? I think there was, if I recall correctly, there were also some considerations or discussion points in relation to horses, I believe, chickens, and right. So
Wild animals
wild
came into the
animals, correct,
conversation?
right, yeah. Right. So again, in terms of preparing language for submission as a BDR to the legislature, sure, I'm happy to coordinate with the executive offices and with Cameron Gresh and coming up with that particular language, but it's really up to the board to decide if you wanted to narrow or identify the specific parameters of that term. I don't know, and I don't remember if I said this on the record last time. It's been a few meetings since. I don't know if in the way that it currently exists, there was any previous intent for that charter provision, if it's too broad, if it's not broad enough, or if you just look at it in terms of adapting to what would be a quote-unquote reasonable interpretation based on the circumstances. But I certainly understand Supervisor White's concern here, which is when we're talking about a legislative measure to make an amendment to the city's charter, which is essentially, the constitution of this municipality, do we need to put a little bit more time into defining what the change is going to be? But again, that's not exactly a legal issue. It's more of a policy consideration for this board as a legislative matter.
You don't find this to be a defect in the presentation of this bill draft? That's really the issue, right? Is there a defect?
I'm not entirely sure I follow what that question is, Madam Mayor. In terms of a procedural defect, no. In terms of a substantive defect, I mean, also no. I suppose there could be a situation where if the drafter over the Legislative Council Bureau were to have any questions, then they would just contact, the submitting party, which in this case would be City Hall, Cameron Gresh.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Schutte.
My understanding is the intent of this is to clean up the language.
and update it for current practices and updated best practices. Animals, the word animals has been used historically, and so we're not changing that other than taking out poultry, because in previous discussions, it was determined that poultry, they are animals, and so you don't need to make that distinction. The word pound keeper, we don't use that term anymore. So I see this more as cleaning up and bringing it up to current policies.
Supervisor Giomi?
Does this not allow us to set the regulation and definitions in Title VII? So this is our charter. This is the overarching umbrella. So we have the word animal in here. We can then, in Title VII, set definitions of what animal is in terms of which animals we want to regulate. So we're not restricting ourselves in any way by calling it an animal, and we're not shoehorning ourselves and forcing ourselves to regulate bighorn sheep should they show up in Carson. That'd be cool. Probably not going to happen, but it'd be cool.
Yes.
We have sheep, but not bighorn sheep. We have the sheep,
Some of
not the headbutting sheep. You know. That probably is the last time I'll ever do that in a public meeting.
Just one more time.
No, that's it. It's over.
Certainly.
Okay.
For
So
you.
just in response to that comment by Supervisor Giomi, again, excellent point. You know, as you'll see throughout various sections of the city charter, some provisions are going to be more specific than others. What that charter provision does is it creates, you know, enabling authority for this board in the future to adopt specific regulations. In this instance, if there's a matter of maybe differences of opinions and how to interpret that, I think that would be, you know, really prime opportunity for this board to consider adopting an ordinance in the future to address that if you wanted to further define it. In this instance, it may be good because if there's a difference in contrast in terms of the historical use and interpretation of that term, animal itself, I mean, I do concede and I understand, I recognize that it could be a very broad term. But as you said, Supervisor Giomi, that gives, you know, opportunity for this board to consider a regulation, the adoption of an ordinance to more specifically define that and correlate it with, if this board wanted to, specific circumstances. So in this instance, it may be better just to leave it broader than trying to kind of shoehorn in specific examples of animals. It just gets, you know, this isn't a legal term, but it gets a little bit wonky, you know, when we're considering things that are multi-nuanced and layered there like an onion, because, you know, even if you were to propose, for example, and this is really just sort of me speaking off the cuff and quote unquote spitballing, again, another legal term I've been using as of late. If we were to even reference it as a domestic animal, then the question might be, well, what does that mean exactly? If for it to be domesticated? One of the issues and dangers with creating too many definitions is that, again, you really wind up handcuffing yourself, which is why the Nevada Supreme Court, in many instances, will default to rules of statutory interpretation and constitutional interpretation. One of those rules is you really look at the context, look at the intent, and you also look at what would be a quote-unquote absurd result and what would be a reasonable interpretation and application of a provision. So those are some tools in the toolbox that could be used, but certainly this could lead to the adoption of an ordinance if this board wanted to.
I guess my point is we have Title VII, which deals with animal regulation. However you define the term animal. I don't know that it's beneficial to us to, as you said, shoehorn it in what is essentially our Constitution, because if we try to change this, we have to go back to the legislature to do that. So putting the word animal here and then defining it in Title VII, when we rewrite Title VII, it can be one of the defining components of that ordinance, which then addresses the concern that anyone may have about how we're trying to regulate whatever animal we decide.
Well,
is
and
an animal.
currently it says animals and poultry. It already says animals. We're not changing that.
And I really do like
Correct.
the way Supervisor Schutte kind of characterizes this in terms of a cleanup, is that, because this existing provision, it was enacted a long time ago. I do see that there's a little bit of strangeness, awkwardness, right? When you say animals and poultry, I mean, there isn't really a distinction there. It's one and the same. So in that sense, this board could view this as, well, it's not really a necessity for us to define it if we don't want to, especially since we do have, as this board, the ability to further define it if it so chose to do so at a later date via ordinance. But for purposes of the charter as sort of the framing, governmental document governing the city, it's just simply cleanup. Different ways of looking at it.
Supervisor White, you had another comment?
I think you're all correct. It should not be defined in the charter, and that's not what I'm asking for. My point is, we need to know what we're talking about before it goes to the legislature, and I ask for that to happen before now. How do we vote on something and we don't even know what we're talking about? I think intuitively, when you say animal, we know what an animal is. But as I've pointed out, there are multiple definitions. When this gets over to the legislature and somebody says, explain what you're trying to do, and you have to say, well, we won't even have a discussion about what an animal is. How's that going to look? We need to have our ducks in a row before this goes to the legislature.
And a duck is an animal? No, sorry. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Mr. French.
Hi, Denny French, Carson City. Thank you, Mayor. I wanted so much not to have to step in. There are so many other things on this particular agenda that I have looked over and studied through and have done considerations, but we have tools at hand, and we have an attorney, and we have the staff, and we have you all. This is a very important point, is that if we cannot define what affordable housing is, or what an animal is, or what animals we're talking about specifically, doesn't that say that we are either not being responsible or just want to play it and wing it or argue it or discuss it each time a subject comes up that doesn't have a clear definition? We have definitions for just about everything you can think of in our rule book and our description book. And for us to have put this question out months ago, to still have you guys deciding whether poultry is an animal, whether a duck is an animal, whether a dog is a domestic animal as compared to a pig, it's just, you think that I waste your time not having clear definitions for things we're not going to have to be facing. Seems so sad to me. What are we doing with all these wonderful tools we have? Are they so involved in things that we haven't even asked? Or are they just not paying attention to what we've asked for clarity? And in this case, I think we've asked for clarity quite a while. I'm really sorry that I had to come up. I would have preferred to stay outside and timed how much it took us to go through the consent agenda, how much time it takes for each of us to speak, how much time we get into nuances of things. The definition I just heard from our legal defense didn't help me at all. It just made me feel lost and frustrated. We have abilities to define them now, and we're not taking. Title VII might be great, and having to consider if we shoehorn ourselves or not. My goodness, we're all animals, if you want to put it in the deepest sense of things, and let's not. Let's be very clear on what we're talking about when it goes to a legislative deal. I've been to those legislative meetings. I don't want this time used to try to figure out what an animal is at those legislative meetings. We should have it defined and ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back up here. Supervisor White has asked for this to be split to two motions. One would, and I have no problem with that. If he would like to be, I have no problem with that whatsoever. So Would someone like to make the motion to approve the bill draft request exclusive right now of section 2.180? Or I'll be happy to do that. So I move approval for the submission of the bill draft request as presented with the exception of section 2.180. And then we'll take that as a separate motion.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, second motion on this item, I move approval of submission of a bill draft request for section 2.180.
I second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
Let the record reflect Supervisor White voted no. I'm going to move for reconsideration of an item on the consent agenda. Item 8A, I'm going to bring that back up. We just received some notice that Sherry Mathis will not be able to serve as she got herself some great job, so she'll be unable to fulfill this position, and we will have to go back out to announcement to get that. So I'm
I'll
asking.
second the reconsideration.
Yes. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the new motion then would be to not approve 8A.
Or no motion,
None.
no
Yeah.
action needed. We,
No, we just are reconsidering the item because we
Okay.
already approved it. So now we need to undo our action. Unapprove it. No appointment. Just say there'll be
yeah,
no appointment.
I mean,
Right.
it seems odd that we have to make
Yeah.
a motion to not appoint somebody.
I know.
To reopen the position.
Say it that way is fine.
Go ahead. I don't.
I
don't
move
think
to
it's-
reopen the position for the position of Library Board of Trustees for a partial term expiring in June 2028.
Second. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sometimes something comes up at the last minute and people aren't able to serve. Okay, all right, we're now on to agenda item 15A. This is for discussion and possible action on our second reading for bill number 107 on the Cultural Commission. Ms. Budge, if you just come up to put on the record if we've received any comments or changes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I've received no public comment.
No public comments. Are there any questions? No questions. Is there any public comment? A motion, please. Supervisor Horton.
I move to adopt on second reading bill number 107, ordinance number 2026-10.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. Thank you. We're now on to agenda item 16A, discussion and possible action on a business impact statement, and to introduce on first reading the proposed ordinance regulating the operation of short-term rentals. Ms. Sullivan.
Whoops. Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll just point out for everybody that I handed out correspondence from Stephen Lincoln this morning, and it is available to the public on the back table. Before I start on this specific ordinance for the benefit of the community, I want to give some background on how we got here today. What you'll see in the report is the board has been formally discussing this for a year and a half, so it didn't just come to you. Right now, short-term rentals are allowed in the city, but they're not specifically called out in the code. The way the code works is there's a section 1804, and it lists lots of land uses, and it tells you in what zoning districts those land uses can occur. From time to time, you have a land use that comes in. Somebody says, I want to do, and for example, a few years ago, someone came in and said, I want to do an indoor go-kart track, and it's up on North Carson Street. Well, the code doesn't tell me what to do with an indoor go-kart track. It's not on the list. And actually, I take that back. It's not on the list. That's a true statement. The code does tell me what to do. The code tells me that when I see a land use come in that's not listed in 1804, I must then go to the intent of the zoning district and identify where that use would be allowed and under what circumstances. Is it permitted, a special use permit, so on and so forth. In the case of a short-term rental, the use is not on the list, much like an indoor go-kart track is not on the list. It's not frequent, but it's also not unusual to have a use that's not on the list. In the case of a short-term rental, I made the interpretation that I would treat it and subject it to the same zoning districts and the same standards as a hotel. What the board said, in acknowledging this, and this was a discussion, we've been talking for a year and a half, the board said, you know what, we don't think that's right. This is a use that exists throughout this entire country. We know it exists. We know it's a pretty established use. Now, 30 years ago, was it? Probably not. Today it is. So we think the code needs to address it. And we also think we need to create standards because these will exist in our community just like they exist in communities throughout this country. And we want standards that are going to create compatibility so that we can hold the operators of this use to a certain standard to force good neighbor relationships in case people use poor judgment. So what you have today is a business impact statement, but you also have an amendment to the zoning code and to Title IV. And what the intent of this was, and has been for a year and a half, is to identify where is it okay to put this use, because that's what you do. In 1804, you say, what's the use, what zoning district will go in? Subject to what type of approval? Is it going to be ministerial or discretionary? And what are those standards that we believe absolutely need to be applied to make sure that we have compatibility in our neighborhoods? So I just wanted to provide that as background. You have two things before you today. You have a business impact statement, which the city manager has signed. The draft ordinance was circulated on July 9th to 6 entities. Those entities were the Builders Alliance, the Chamber of Commerce, Airbnb, Vacation Rental by Owner, Garrett Gordon, who represents the realtors and has been engaged in this topic, and the lobbyist for Airbnb, who's also been engaged. No comments were received. The business impact statement concludes that the proposed ordinance will not impose a direct and significant economic burden upon a business, and that the proposed ordinance does not directly restrict the formation, operation, or expansion of the business. I'll now speak to the proposed ordinance. I want to thank Dan Yu. I read the ordinance again last night, and you all probably know, but Dan knows. I challenge his ordinances because it's my team that has to implement them. And last night I was kind of ready because I hadn't read it for a while, and I was really pleased with what I read. So I want to acknowledge that. The ordinance before you today primarily reflects the input that we received from the board at its meeting on May 21st, 2026, when it reviewed the, quote, menu of options. You'll remember, we looked at a menu just like any restaurant you go to. You look at a menu, and you all picked and chose what you wanted to include in the ordinance. I will identify a couple highlights briefly, and I'll note that there's a couple typos in the ordinance, and Dan, you and I have discussed this. 4.04 is the business license section. 4.40 is the new section on short-term rentals. So there's times where those numbers, the 40 versus 04, got confused, and Dan and I will work through those before adoption. In terms of highlights, I want to read very briefly the definition of a short-term rental property because there's been questions about it. A short-term rental property means a residential unit that's rented as a transient lodging. This does not include situations where someone occupies their home. So you're a homeowner, you're occupying your home, and you have an extra bedroom or two, and you choose to rent out those bedrooms. That is not a short-term rental. The board has been talking about this for a year and a half, and you were very clear that when you have an empty nester who chooses to rent out a bedroom, you did not want that to be considered a short-term rental. In those cases where someone's occupying their home, if they have an extra bedroom, they choose to rent out the bedroom, regardless of how long they're choosing to. From a land use perspective, we will consider that to be a dwelling. You're living in your house, it's your house. what the ordinance addresses, I'm not going to go in a deep dive on this, but I'll just outline it for the benefit of the public, is the application requirements, a code of conduct, prohibited conduct, safety inspections, sanitation protocols, how to handle violations. There's also a modification of the definition of a rental business, and that's for the purpose of the room tax. The room tax had a minimum of, I think it was 4 bedrooms, and we've eliminated the bedroom count so that there's no confusion that this use of a short-term rental will be subject to the room tax. We also identify in what zoning districts it will be permitted. And I do want to note that in the residential zoning districts, as well as the non-residential with the exception of public and industrial, and with the exception of multifamily apartment, it is a permitted use, which means it doesn't need a public hearing with a hearings officer or with the planning commission as an administrative permit or a special use permit would require, so it's permitted. Kyle Fisher, our new deputy, he looked at this and he brought up a good point, and I want to acknowledge it publicly. His comment was, since you can only have one per property, what happens with a condominium? And I've thought about this and I'm not worried about it. And the reason I'm not worried about it is because we are not allowing short-term rentals in the multifamily apartment zoning district. And that's a zoning district where you would see a condo. That said, I think it's a good point. I'm not suggesting you do anything different, but our staff will take a deeper dive to kind of inventory the condos and make sure we don't see any issues. You do have late materials, I already mentioned. You have the late material from Stephen Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln owns a duplex, which means it's 2 units on one piece of property. He has indicated he rents those, and he has suggested that there be provisions made to allow, in the case of a duplex, that both units accommodate a short-term rental. You'll recall what the ordinance says right now, and I agree with it and support it and discourage any change to it, is that you may only have 1 short-term rental per property. Also, there's been questions about renting the bedrooms and whether or not if I rent a bedroom, am I going to be called a short-term rental? So I made a point of addressing that on the record, and that is not how the code reads. If you live in your house and you choose to rent an extra bedroom you are still a dwelling. I will not call you from a land use perspective a short-term rental. And then there's been questions about the taxes if you're a short-term rental. And you'll recall that in the past year and a half, I think more recently, the tax assessor has come and spoken to you about that and how she'll address it. Supervisor Giomi asked the question of me, well, what do we do with a home-based business? And I checked with the assessor. What the assessor does with a home-based business is they bifurcate it. So if I'm an accountant and I'm working out of my home, the tax assessor is going to identify how much of the property is being allocated to my business versus my dwelling, and they'll bifurcate the tax bill. So I wanted to provide that information as well. Again, I don't plan to. Okay, so I don't plan to go in depth, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and hopefully the background helps the community understand how we got here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any member have a question? Supervisor Giomi?
I find it, this is the dichotomy that we're all dealing with. Literally in the public comments, there's one person who said the fees we're charging are ridiculously low and should be raised. And the very next public comment is the fees we are charging are ridiculously high and need to be lowered. So that is the dichotomy that we are left to make a decision on, finding an answer somewhere in there. My question is, I do find, so on on page 300, item number 2, I'm good. I just realized that I misread that. It's not the license fee, it's the application fee. My bad. Sorry, let's go to 301. You might have to refresh my memory. I thought we talked about bear-proof containers not being required.
No, we did read this. decided.
I know we went back and forth, but
Understood. And in fact, Kyle Fisher, who's here today, my deputy director, or your deputy director, not mine, he rewatched the tape, and there was a lot of discussion on that, and it did land on the yes. That said, I know some of the supervisors did have questions about that, so it's whatever you all want to do today.
okay. Yeah, I still don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. And there is an ordinance about bear-proof containers. I didn't read it at length. But it's
There's not a
mentioned in 7.01.
My recollection is there's not a mandate, and that from having checked with, is Rick Cooley still here? I'm not
No.
sure, but checking with Rick Cooley a number of months ago to see if there was a mandate for a bear-proof container. My recollection is he advised there's not a mandate for it, but a property owner can choose to utilize
Well,
one,
of
and they
course.
pay an extra fee.
Yeah, I have one, and I pay that fee. Help me remember, did we, now I'm going ahead to 305 and the maintenance sanitary stuff. I thought we were broadly going to have the health department sort of provide guidance. But now I see that we're specifically, again, requiring this maintenance log, which I'm not a fan of.
Okay, so it's a combination. So you're correct that, and I believe it was you, if I recall correctly, said rather than having them propose something, why don't we tell them the bare minimum that they have to do? And that's how the proposed ordinance reads. That said, we have asked that they maintain a log to demonstrate that they are performing the maintenance. And we have the authority to request the log to verify it. But it's not that they have a mandate to be submitting logs to us for review. We just have the authority to request to review it.
Okay. Okay, I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Horton?
Hope, let me put you on the spot for just a second. You've already addressed this, but just for clarity, you can currently have a short-term rental, and there are no rules that guide that.
That's exactly right. And again, just to reiterate, the goal of this ordinance was to state the use very specifically, state where the use would be allowed, and to create standards because there were no standards. And the board wanted to make sure as these established, they established in a way that would be compatible with the community.
Right. And if you're going to have short-term rentals, as stated in public comment earlier this morning, it's good to have rules. It's good to have regulations in place. You need to be able, from the code enforcement perspective, to enforce a rule. You need to have a rule. And if we're doing this, it's imperative that we have rules that can be enforced that make sense, right?
Correct. And when I referenced my reading of the ordinance vis-a-vis the writing of the ordinance, one of the things I'm always reading for is enforceability, to make sure it's written in a way that we can enforce it. And I find that this proposed ordinance is written in a way that our staff can enforce it. And again, your statement about the intent, I agree with.
Thank you.
Supervisor White?
Thank you. I'm looking for some clarification, I guess, on page 304 at 1.b, where it says, we shall ensure that all essential utilities, including without limitation, water, sewer, and electric services are connected, and that all city utility accounts are in good standing. I think one interpretation of that is that a property must be connected to the city utility services. And I just want clarification that that's not what we're intending in this point, because I think there are still some properties here in Carson that are on their own water and sewer systems. And so I wouldn't want to eliminate those folks.
Thank you for that question. I will state publicly that my interpretation of the code will be that somebody who is on well and septic will be considered as connected. If the board doesn't agree with that interpretation, we should probably talk about it, but that would be my interpretation.
Beyond that, I think all of my concerns that I've had are satisfied. And I just want to say for the public that this is a situation where while short-term rentals are necessarily allowed because they are disallowed, this is a situation where the potential of a nuisance being introduced into a neighborhood that doesn't currently exist needs to be addressed. It's our responsibility to ensure that we protect the private property rights of all the property owners. And putting in these regulations gives us an enforcement tool to protect everybody's private property rights. And as far as whether the fees are too low or too high, our instruction was to be right, whatever else we do with business licensing, business fees, and these fees are intended to generate the ability of the city to enforce these rules. That's what we're doing here, is we're trying to protect everybody. And frankly, if you can't afford to pay a business license and the associated fees, how are you going to be able to have the sort of resources available to keep your property clean and sanitary for when the next renter comes along? If you can't afford that, I don't see you providing your visitors a good stay at your property.
Supervisor Schutte?
Thank you. I have 2 points. I would like to speak to the bear-proof bins because I feel they're important. And in the discussion that we had last time, not all of the property owners live in this community and are aware really of how prevalent bears are in this area. And so I think that this is a fairly easy way to address the possibilities of bears in the area. I understand that other neighbors don't have to have it, but other neighbors live on site where these homes, you don't have somebody actually residing in the homes. And so I feel in this case it's appropriate and it protects the area in a much better way. I did have a question on page 306, and I think it's 306 because mine isn't numbered. So the 440-160-2, only violations occurring in the 24 months immediately preceding the most current violation may be considered for the purposes of subsection 1. 24 months seems, I don't remember the conversation on that. It seems a little bit long, but if I'm open to discussion on that, I think I would prefer within the year, but if there was reasons for the longer term, I would just love a review on that. Thank you.
Okay. We talked about 1 year versus 2 years in the fact that these are short-term rentals, so they're only on the weekends. And so how many violations across the term, and that it was new. And so we also said we would revisit. It's not that we couldn't come back on these and say we didn't get this right. I think it's important to note that any of these regulations that we do, we strive for perfection on try number 1, but we may find things that Hope brings back to us and says,
Back and correct.
we better change this to 1 year, or it's all work. Hopefully it all works. That's our real dream, but that really was the kind of, we'll settle on 2. We're not trying to put them out of business before they can even get started.
I understand.
That was the thing there. I'm fine with the bear-proof containers because that was the other issue, is if your trash doesn't go out till Thursday, but you left on Sunday, And yes, your management company or whoever will come and move the trash out appropriately, but like you said, there's no one there to be monitoring the issue. So I don't think it's a huge burden to ask them to do the bear-proof container just to protect their neighbors. The other issue is we need to select a date. Hope and I were talking the other day and really looking to how long it would take her to get the forms and for Jeannie to do the samples of what your log might need to look like, what you need. Like you said, she's going to write that up for them. So we thought maybe November 1st is a great implementation date. So if y'all just think about that too. And then the other issue I want to discuss is what she said, the enforcement component, because we have lots of issues going on right now, right? We had the 40 that you were able to see online. The gentleman this morning says, oh, I'm going to have one as a next door neighbor that's going to be coming in. So when we talk about enforcement, I just want to make sure we're all on the same understanding and we have the same message. So the way I read all of this is Hope won't be enforcing short-term rental licensing and these violations and all that stuff until November 1st. Is that an accurate statement or misstatement? Fix me if I'm wrong on the enforcement. Mr. Yu?
Sure. If November 1st is the date of the effective date of this ordinance upon passage, then that would be the date upon which a violation of this ordinance would, result in a penalty. Prior to the effective date of this ordinance, there would be no violation of quote unquote any provision of this chapter because this chapter would not be law yet.
So she would not be enforced. I just want for the public that might be making phone calls or doing things and saying, oh, I have a short-term rental next door to me and they're doing X and I don't like it. Her team would be answering, call me back after November 1st.
What?
Current law. She should be enforcing current law.
There you go.
So Mayor, if I may just follow up,
Understand.
first question that I answered, I believe, to your satisfaction on the record, that's the effective date or whatever the date is selected by this board. Without this ordinance becoming adopted, there is no provision of this chapter. This chapter doesn't
There is
exist.
no violations.
But again, to the
Or there
point
is.
of a couple of other supervisors, we have as a city taken the position in the past that currently under the existing framework of CCMC, short-term rentals are not allowed unless it's in a couple, I believe, of zoning districts. And that matter, as everybody knows, has been litigated. So that doesn't change the existing framework. So I suppose what I'm saying is this is going to be kind of a mixed question of policy and law. Law with respect to the enforcement of this proposed ordinance cannot take effect until obviously after it's been adopted and it becomes good law. But the enforcement of any other activity could still proceed under other provisions of law under the existing regulatory framework that we have in the code. But that would be a question of policy. And the reason why I say that is because obviously what's coming down the pike here, depending on the outcome of today's vote and then the final outcome of the second hearing vote, that's really going to dictate how all of this is enforced.
So you're saying that we need to discuss today kind of whether or not we want her to, well, we'll just use an example. She goes out on the VRBO site today and sees 40 short-term rentals in town. And so are we telling her to go after all of those today or forget it and wait till the November 1st to have it? Actually, I'd be sending them all a letter. Personally, that would be my take, is we would be notifying everyone that you see on a site saying, hey, just want to let you know, effective November 1st, Carson City has a new ordinance and you will be subject to that. I just want to help give Hope direction of where we're seeing this. And that's what I thought we discussed on the prior one when we said, okay, we're going to give them 60 days or 90 days to come into compliance. In this case, we're going the opposite direction and just saying it's effective whatever date we select, and that's when compliance begins. And so I don't want Hope's team just out there getting pressure from all sides. One telling her to do it, one telling her not to do it, having everybody going to court saying this is moot. I don't know. We need to give direction.
I'm gonna, Madam Mayor, if I may, I first of all say I'm not gonna tell Hope to do anything, as a representative of the DA's office, because she's a heavy puncher and I don't want to get knocked out. But secondarily, I just do want to remind the board that we want to stay within the scope of this agenda title, and I know that, of course. So, with all deference to you, Madam Mayor, but just as a friendly reminder, what I would advise this board not to do is to give as a motion a consensus or collective directive to any staff with respect to enforcement activities. And that's kind of what I meant earlier when I said this is really a kind of a mixed question of public policy in terms of whether to proceed with enforcement in the recognition of the fact that this ordinance is coming down the pike. What we're talking about here today are the various provisions that are being proposed as the ordinance. I'm not saying that this is not a relevant or germane discussion, certainly, but I would advise this board to stay away from giving, or providing a motion on the record with respect to enforcement activities.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I do have active enforcement going on right now with short-term rentals, so I want to state that. That said, what I am going to suggest, based on what Mr. Yu said, is that I simply work with the city manager's office on where I want to put the staff resources. Do I want to put the staff resources against pursuing enforcement, or do I want to put staff resources towards preparing for the implementation of this ordinance, contacting those 40 so people, doing the educational outreach? And I think the city manager and I can, and he'll obviously be consulting with you all on that, and identify where that effort level should be. And I do have that authority to determine how aggressively or not aggressively to pursue a code enforcement. So if that would work for you all, I would suggest that as you have individual thoughts, you share those with the city manager, and then I'll consult with him tomorrow.
Okay, let's see. The other one we had was the public request on duplex. I think that's the outstanding. So we did the bear, right? I think it's duplexes, that they should be able to do both sides of the duplex. Do you guys have a thought?
I'd say no.
Leave it the way we have it in the
We
proposal?
already said that we wanted one per property. So I don't know that I would single out duplexes, because then
Versus ADUs, right?
That's where it gets
that's where it gets
And he can
complicated.
rent one side of the duplex for longer than 28
Yeah, you
days.
can rent it for 30 days. and
Well,
rent
whatever,
the other
anything
one for
longer
2
than
nights.
28.
Yeah,
Right. And so we're not stopping the opportunity for him to have revenue from both sides. Just one side could be short-term, the other one would need to be long-term.
Well, the other side could get into renting it to the traveling nurses that are generally 90 days.
Make it with
Which is
the,
outside
make an
the
agreement
scope.
with the hospital
Yeah.
for a 6-month lease or things of that nature. Okay, I just wanted to, we had a request, so I wanted to discuss it. Let me see if there is public comment on this item. Come on up, Mr. Fonda. Mr. Fonda. Thank you. And then I'll come to you, Denny. Green.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Board of Supervisors. And I appreciate, this is the first time I see Hope's name in the records, but now I understand your responsibilities, and I appreciate your consideration. As I've already indicated, this just came upon us because of this recent sale of the property. My question is, when you talk about revenue and fiscal revenues, and you talk about enforcing regulations and inspections, it takes time, resources, and money. And then when you talk about fees, what you're going to charge regarding these permits and so forth, obviously that should be consideration, because all of a sudden now, if you see 40 units in Carson City available in VRBO, ARMBB, how many more individuals who decide to sell their property, permanent primary resident people in Carson City sell their property, move away, but then they sell the property, you don't use the proceeds for a new house somewhere else. They decide, hey, we love Carson City. Now I can go ahead and use this as an investment property. And pretty soon you have a lot of people moving into Carson City that are just short-term rentals. I mean, is that because of the demand of the property managers and the realtors and so forth think, hey, this is a business that everybody should be in, and I should not be biased against short-term rentals in this particular community. But again, to me, it comes down to, as these expand from 40 to 80 to 100 to 120, that's a lot of work. And that's a lot of enforcement mechanisms and inspections and regulations to enforce. And trust me, in my area now, since I moved there 30 years ago, we've got mountain lion, we've got bobcats, we've got coyotes running everywhere. I've never seen so many deer on the south end of town. We used to have, most of them were down on the reservation at Stewart, but, and most of the deer, of course, are on the west side. But we have a lot more animals, and we still have a lot of poultry in the area that attract a lot of vermins and so forth that are trying to take care of the chickens. And we have horses, but that was one of the beautiful reasons to move down that way. Not that we have a horse at this time. But I just think when you talk about zoning, certain areas in this city, I think, are more attractive for certain reasons than others. And I don't know when you consider that, whether my privacy, knowing my neighbors, knowing who's coming in and leaving, and the trash situation and so forth, and is a concern. It's a real concern. And what happens if my dog starts barking after 10 o'clock? Are they going to call the sheriff and basically tell me that my dog is waking them up after 10 o'clock? And my dog is howling and trying to take care and push away some critters that are around the neighborhood. Is that going to be a problem where the sheriff's going to have to come down and talk to us? So I just do not like the interaction, but I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. French?
Thank you, Denny French, Carson City. I follow up on the gentleman's statements about the code enforcement and the expenses. Right now, we're basing everything on 40 prospective properties that are online and being made available as becoming licensed facilities that then we are then into enforcement. But when I look at the late material, it looks like we've already been dealing with individuals that are being considered not in line with the short-term considerations. So I'm confused, and I'll check out the rest later. I don't have any issues with the policy as it's written. I think we've done a really good job. I'm still a little concerned about the complaints and the responses by owners and by the responsible persons. I didn't quite figure out if it was the 30 minutes that you had to call or the 30 minutes you had to be there physically. I have to find that in the ordinances. But I do think that we have to have staff, whether it's one person taking care of 10 places or 10 people taking care of 100 places. And I don't know that the fees are going to cover those costs. However, I do appreciate the fact that you've put the time into it, and everything I've read is very commendable to me. But I am frustrated that this material looks like we've already been litigating some issues that I thought weren't going to start till November of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comment on this item? Did you, oh, come on up. Sorry, he was standing just as you were raising your hand. Peek around, you're good.
Terry Workington, Carson City. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak publicly. I think you guys brought up a couple good points. I want to thank you all for actually taking this under consideration and putting some rules and regulations around short-term rentals. We are in active short-term rental here in Carson City right now. Just don't take my picture or give my address out. No, it's all good. We actually did come down to the Carson City planning, down to the office before we actually start our short-term rental to try to get guidance. And honestly, we didn't get any guidance at all. So we're very appreciative that this is being put in place. We've attended a lot of these meetings. I think the direction that you guys have taken is really solid. I don't think you've come in with a heavy hand at all, but I think just putting some rules and regulations in place is really a good thing and a good start. I just kind of caught the last of it. Sorry, I kind of came in a little bit late, but I think the November 1 and having that like a hard date, like, okay, now we're enforcing. I think there needs to be a ramp-up period to allow folks like us to be able to kind of properly get ourselves set up and licensed properly, whether it's X number of days before that, or if it's not November 1st, and then we need to have like 30, 60 days to kind of get in compliance. But we're all for that. But please give us a little bit of grace to kind of get on board and get everything properly structured. I don't know why this one's sticking out on me, the bear cans. I did see that there's regulation for 1 day before and 1 day after, which is what normally everybody else in residence do. That regulation's already in there. So I don't see the need for the additional burden and expense of a bear can, and also the, for waste management to kind of have to support that, whereas we're not a bear can community.
Yet.
or maybe certain areas need to be, but that's just one thing that's kind of standing out for me. All the fees seem to be fairly reasonable. I looked through the draft. I didn't see anything on, I think there was a proposal for an increase of the property tax. Has that been included or excluded? Oh, sorry.
You got 40 seconds. Go.
Where did they end up on landing on that? Because I think right now it's like at 3%, or is it up at 8%? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, again, we're a small business, and, we're going to be paying the taxes. We're paying all the other fees. I think getting, hit on the property taxes is also pretty burdensome. So that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. So just so the public can understand, the rules on the property tax is not done by this board. That was done by the legislature. So commercial activities are at the 8%. It's that simple. And this year didn't hit quite 8% because there's this big fancy formula and all this other kind of stuff that happened. So it was like, I don't know, 7.6 or something. But that's done by the assessor's office and the state law. It is not that this board is imposing that. Thank you. Okay, I'll bring it back up here then. So do we like November 1st?
Well, does that give staff time to have themselves in a position to enforce?
Right.
And does it give staff time to actually notice the existing short-term rentals that they need to come in compliance? And also, I think, notify the, I don't know what you call them, the rental companies, Airbnb, Verbo, those folks, that this is coming to Carson City, and they need to get the people they represent need to be up to speed. Is November 1st the right? Can you get it all done by November 1st?
Yeah, that's my question too. Not only can you get it done, but if it's in effect November 1st, and we say these are the regs, they're here, you've got the documents and all that, how much time do we give the property owners to then, is the expectation that they're going to have everything in on November 1st? I think we need some, that seems like that means you have to be ready before November 1st.
Understood. I feel like we've been working on this for so long, we need to implement. And I would expect implementation and enforcement would begin November 1st. We would have the forms ready for application prior to November 1st, so everybody goes live with an effective date of November 1. And then in terms of Airbnb and vacation rental by owner, as well as the realtors, we did that notice of the business impact statement. So they're fully aware that we are doing this in Carson City. That was sent to them, I believe it was July 9th. So this is not a surprise. I would suggest that I have more listening sessions, but I'm not necessarily listening this time, but I'm happy to do a Saturday thing, an evening thing for folks who either have these short-term rentals or are thinking about having the short-term rentals so that we can explain the regulations to them, show them how to apply and so on and so forth. So I will do that outreach effort. But I don't think we can delay past November 1. And I also, when the mayor and I spoke, wanted to make sure we weren't hitting holidays or something. So if we delay, we're getting into holidays and that gets a little hectic and people say, oh gosh, it's the holiday, it wasn't convenient. I will commit to making it happen for November 1.
Okay, Supervisor Shooty.
So to help people prepare to be ready for November 1, could paperwork or any forms, could that be ready, let's say September 1?
That would be the objective. I think the way the code's written, and again, I don't usually compliment Dan Yu multiple times during my presentations, but I will today because I really was worried about this one and I wanted to make sure it was crafted in a way that I could implement. And it is. And so I think because the code is so specific on what the application has to include and what the standards are, it's going to lend itself very easily to transitioning over. We have a third party supporting us on our portal. So we can explain to them what we need for the portal so people can remotely apply. So I feel like it's not ambiguous. It's pretty straightforward what we have to do. And we'll work with the health department in terms of the sanitation protocols. We'll do the outreach. I don't want to delay past November 1 because this is a hot topic. And but I don't want to go faster than November 1 because I want to give a reasonable period of time.
Is there enough time to get the second reading with noticing done by the August meeting, the second meeting in August? Or will that, because the ordinance doesn't even come into effect until the second reading.
Scott,
And
We're doing the next meeting.
when would you publish?
there's enough timing?
Yeah.
I mean, it times out okay?
We've already,
Yeah.
It'll be 2 months.
Yes, I believe so. And actually, I just pulled that up just to be doubly sure.
Because I know sometimes we've run into issues where,
Right. Yeah. The publication requirement for general circulation, that's just 10 days. It's 10
Okay.
calendar days in between readings. So we've got sufficient time. Unless there's been a change with the publication deadlines for the Nevada appeal, I don't believe that's the case.
okay, I mean, it's close, but we should make it. Okay, that was the only concern I had. Good.
okay. So we've got November 1 for an effective date, the bill number, and no changes then in the thing? Other than some conforming changes that the district attorney might do for any typos or that, but, right? Was there anything else?
So just as a point of clarity, and I do want to apologize on the record for transposing a few of those section numbers, 4.04 and 4.40. Thanks for pointing that out. I hope I appreciate that. I will identify those where necessary and make those technical corrections. Of course, I'm going to blame that on my fat fingers as I'm getting older and I'm typing. But there was one other thing that I wanted to point out. Oh, that's right. With respect to Supervisor White's comment earlier and concerns, I'm going to go ahead and address that right now with respect to the connection of utilities. And I think probably an easy fix for that, just to avoid any potential ambiguity, although I think that the way it's written and the way it reads is there's no requirement that a utility has to be connected to a city utility. But I think a very easy fix would just be to say, and let me get back to that page.
304.
And that's in paragraph B of subsection 1 of 4.40140. All essential utilities, including without limitation water, sewer, and electric services, are connected and that all city utility accounts are in good standing. I think a really easy fix is just simply to say all essential utilities, including without limitation water, sewer, and electric services, are connected and that all city utility accounts, comma, if any, are in good standing. And then you got a reference by incorporation that obviously signifies that not all accounts for utilities are city accounts, without further revising that paragraph. So I think I can make that fix, and that clears up any potential whatsoever. I am, and from a drafting perspective and a legal compliance perspective, as far as, Hope is concerned and what she said on the record, if she doesn't have any issue with, ramping up and getting to that enforcement, ability by November 1st, then legally, no issue. I would say, just in case that there is further consideration in advance of the next round, I'm generally opposed to an idea of a quote-unquote compliance period. 20 years of drafting, state legislation and local ordinances, I've never seen a compliance period. I think that also from a perspective of enforcement, it becomes extremely difficult because it doesn't quite make sense in my mind how that works, in a regulatory fashion. If a law is effective, it's effective, and you're able to enforce. You cannot say that this law is effective, and for those who are going to be complying with it, we may or may not enforce, but certainly for those who are not complying with it, well, you still have an additional compliance period. To me, what that means is you're just incentivizing people to wait until the very last minute to comply. And so I think an effective date is a better proposal. And those are just my 2 cents on the record.
Okay, thank you. All right, are we ready for a motion? Supervisor Giomi.
I move to accept the business impact statement as presented and introduced on first reading, bill number 108, with the change in section 4.40140(1)B to add the words "if any" in the appropriate spot, and to make the effective date of the ordinance November 1, 2025, and to allow 2026, sorry, a year behind. Thank you. And to allow the district attorney's office to make conforming and non-substantive changes as may be necessary.
I second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Thank you for that. Thanks for the hard work, and phew, that just took a year and a half, but we're there. We're there. Thank you. We're going to take just a brief recess so people can use facilities if necessary. So we're in recess. 16B, discussion and possible action for an extension of time on 899 North Lampa. Heather Manzo, are you bringing this one for discussion? Just brief, I'm assuming.
I can be super brief, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mayor.
rush
Heather
to
Manzo
it.
for the record. So this abandonment was approved by the board a little under a year ago. This request is associated with several other mapping requests that have been approved administratively for parcel maps, which will expire in December. So the applicants requested an amendment to condition number 3 to extend the timeline on the abandonment to coincide with the expiration of the parcel maps. And staff's recommending approval. The applicant's here if you have any questions for them.
Does any member of the board have a question? No?
Just a
Yes?
statement.
Statement. Supervisor White?
I voted on this, I voted no on this before, and I still cannot make findings 1, 4, and 7, and I still a no.
Wasn't that nice not to put it on consent? Just for you. Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back here for a motion. Supervisor Horton?
I move to approve the extension of time as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no.
No.
Let the record reflect it was 4 yeses, 1 no by Supervisor White. We're going to move on to agenda item 16C. This is discussion and possible action for the abandonment of a 10-foot wide alley running north and south from West John to West William. And Heather Ferris, the other Heather. Would you just kind of give us a briefing on this one, please?
Sure. So the subject abandonment area is a 10-foot wide alley, as you said, running north to south, west of North Curry Street and east of North Nevada. The area to be abandoned is approximately 1,683 square feet in size. The request is being made to accommodate development plans for the property at 1114 North Curry Street. While these plans really only affect 1114 North Curry, there is a lot of development that has occurred over the years and has encroached into the alley, and they include structures, fences, landscaping, and things of that nature. So we did encourage the applicant to come forward to abandon the entire length of that alley. If approved upon a recordation of the order of abandonment, the alley will revert to each of the abutting property owners. So essentially half of the alley along their frontage will go back to the subject property owners. The Planning Commission made all of the required findings at their July 29th, 2026 meeting and is recommending approval, subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report. With that, I'm available for questions.
Does any member have a question? No? Any
Oh,
public?
I do. Sorry.
Supervisor Schutte.
I'm just confirming that the utility easements, I know it was in the report, but I just really want that on the record. And I drove around the block and it's like, what alley?
Yeah.
But just if this is truly privately owned, that there's a clear understanding that there are
Right.
those easements
So
in
condition
place.
number 4 actually requires the establishment of the utility easements to accommodate the existing NV Energy facilities that are in that area. And that will be required to be provided prior to the recordation of the abandonment order.
Okay. Again, I'll just ask because there was no public comment, just to make sure. Okay, Supervisor Horton, a motion, please.
I move to approve the abandonment as presented.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. I hope we don't have a lot more of these kind of alleys around town, but somehow I think we might.
What alley?
Yeah, what alley now? Exactly.
When I read that, I'm like, there's no alley on that block.
And I was like, yikes. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item. Somehow I know there's more, though. Agenda item 16D. This is action for a final subdivision map for Blackstone Ranch Phase 2A1. The other Heather is back to visit with us. Heather, would you take us through this item, please?
I'd be happy to, thank you. So the board approved a 204 unit subdivision called Blackstone 2, or Phase 2. This is the first map within that phase that's before you today. Staff's recommending approval. The applicant has met all required conditions and is available for any questions.
Does any member have a question on this map? Nope. Is there any public comment on this item? Going. Okay, I'll bring it back up here. Supervisor Giomi, a motion, please.
I move to approve SUB-2025-0326 as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no.
No.
Let the record.
Same as last time.
Yeah, let the record reflect it was 4 yeses and 1 no by Supervisor White. We're now on to agenda item 16E, and this is discussion and possible action on a final subdivision map for Blackstone Ranch Phase 2A2, resulting in the creation of 41 single-family lots. Heather, would you take us through this item?
I'd absolutely be happy to. So this is also within Blackstone Phase 2. It's just to the south of the one that you just approved. Staff is recommending approval. All conditions have been met, and the applicant's available for questions.
Does any member have a question? Don't see any. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, a motion, Supervisor Giomi.
Move to approve SUB-2025-0343 as presented.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve 0343. Okay, just make sure we're all on the same page here. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No, like
Let-
last time it was
Yeah.
there.
Let the record reflect it's 4 yeses, 1 no by Supervisor White. Thank you so much. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 17, our non-action items. Does any member of the board have something to share?
I just wanted to give a shout out, and I'm sure several of us will, the Sheriff's Night Out. That was incredible, and just the community support and so many,
And hot, incredibly hot.
It was.
warm, but it was, kind of a Halloween in August, all the kiddos with their bags and getting all the swag. But it was just a really, really well done event. And Carson City, we just have a lot of great things going on, and kudos to all the different organizations that really are looking out for community members, for public safety, for the needs of our neighbors, all of that. So I just wanted to acknowledge.
It was well done, well done. Anybody else? Mr. Martell, did you want to just announce again, in case the public, every opportunity we have, do you want to talk about the City Hall presentation coming up?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. As you might have seen on various advertising and conversations, the city will be hosting the City Hall Preview Night next Thursday, August 13th, and that will be at 5:30 to 7 o'clock in the evening. That will be at the northeast corner of Plaza and Proctor Street here in Carson City. That is the corner that you have identified as the location for your next City Hall, that we continue to perform all the due diligence. So I encourage the residents to come by. We have some exhibits. We have Stephanie and myself will be there to answer questions, as well as your finance director, Sherry, will be there. And we'll be able to answer any questions the public might have. And as a little side incentive, we do have some cookies as well. So happy to see anybody come by that has questions for us. So thank you.
And also for information, we have made a project page on the website for carsonproud.com. And we have a project page for the City Hall discussions that's continually being updated.
Yes, if you go to the carsoncity.gov website, you will see right on the front page, you will see the illustration showing the proposed City Hall as well as the proposed parking garage. On that picture, you will see a link to the project page on Carson Proud. When you go to that page, you will see the links to the meetings that have occurred over the last few years, referencing and discussing that project. When you hit that link, you no longer need to go any deeper into the program. The staff, your team has produced all of those documents on that first link. So any PDFs associated with that, you can see right away. If you would like to then go and listen or do any further research, that link is available. So trying to expedite that access to all the public records that we've referenced in previous conversations.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, does anybody else have? Well, that was easy. Okay, just so everyone knows, we will stay after the meeting for our closed session to confer with council. I will now go to final public comment for today. Is there any final public comment, Mr. French?
Denny French, Carson City. Some days are diamonds and some days are rocks. My day has been a rock, but I appreciated the help from everyone that spoke to me outside and got me caught up on the short-term rental and the newer information. But I'd also like to bring up and remind people that they sprayed for mosquitoes on the 5th, and that if you have yard furniture that you relate to dogs as far as bowls or water for birds, dump it, get clean, fresh out, and please encourage the city to find other methods, more species specific. There's a thing called mosquito mate out that I would like people to look into. It's a biological consideration that would sterilize the eggs. In the process, there would be exchange so that there would be eggs, but that those eggs then would not hatch. So please look into alternatives. As we're spraying now, we are killing insects all over the place. Butterflies are in real danger right now. The danger level is really high for several species. And so please watch out for your lights and for the situations as far as migrations. Our lights are a big factor for butterflies as well as birds. So be conscientious about your household lights. And if we could, as a city, make sure that we're conscientious about our billboards and such and how they're affecting our inhabitants that are not well, we are all animals and we all depend on our environment. And if we don't watch it, we're going to be in a bad shape. But again, thank Mr. Kyle Fisher for helping me understand that there are certain things that are in litigation that do not relate specifically what you're deciding for November. So I'd like to thank him and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Is there any other final public comment? No? There are only 2 others in the room? No? You're good to go? Okay, with that then, oh.
Just come up, you have to
Come up. Do you have public comment?
Press
No.
the button and just say your name, please.
Fawn Hayes, and with Chase International. I just was checking to see if item 9C was going to be talked about today. I didn't notice if
It was on consent. It was approved.
Oh, it was approved?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, we missed that.
We
Thank you
were
so much.
fast. That was right off the
Yeah.
top.
Okay, good. We enjoyed our time here today. Thank you.
You'll learn more than you ever wanted to know. Okay. Oh, no wonder. I was like, what are they waiting on? That's okay. That was our first actual action that we took. So you're good. Have a good day. Okay. If there's nothing further and no objection, then we are adjourned as the board. We'll take just a moment or two to clear out and we'll do our conference with the